Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our April webinar. We are going to cover some topics that come up quite often in support. These are topics that we've talked about before in the past, but there's a few new twists here and there, and they are recurring themes that come up, so we'd like to cover some tips about those things. So we're going to talk about managing your customers, your advertisers. We'll talk about how to view them, different filters you can use, different ways to kind of slice and dice the data so that you can see really what's going on with your advertisers and who signed up for your portal. We'll talk about resetting the advertiser passwords. That's something that comes up a lot. So we're going to do that. And we'll also talk about a few tips with increasing the adoption rate from your advertisers. Now, this is something that typically comes up in beginning your portal and starting to use SendMyAd, but it's a good time to maybe step back and look at some of those tips and see if there's things that you can do even now once you've been using the portal to help advertisers get involved. And then we'll go into a more in-depth tutorial about publisher approvals. And this is one that, again, it comes up pretty often. Many of our publishers do use the approval cycles, and it is kind of complex to set up, and a few concepts you have to understand to really get the most out of them. There's some little used features or underused features that I'll point out, and a few support items that come up with those. So let's get going here. A little housekeeping before we get started. The GoToWebinar viewer will let you zoom, so I'm on a fairly large screen. If you need to do that to see all of my screen, do that. And then if you have questions, you can type those in to the little viewer, and we will take those if we can as they come up, or we'll tackle those all at the end. We'll just see how it goes. All right, well, let's get going. Okay, so let me see if I can make this full screen. There we go. Okay, I'm going to log in on my demo site as a publisher. Okay, now let's take a look at our customers, and that's easy to do under the Manage Customers area here in the left menu. This will give us a table view of all of our users who've signed up, and it defaults to this user view. Okay, but you can actually toggle. Think of this as kind of as tabs, so you can toggle between a list of user emails, or companies, or invitees. So invitees are people that you've sent an email to from the site and asked them to sign up for SendMyAd, but they might not have registered under your portal yet. So there's different categories of this. So for instance, these ones have signed up and they're users, okay? And we know that they've been they've probably used our portal. They've at least gone and created an account. Others, they may actually have accounts, but maybe with a different publisher, okay? Or they just have never responded. So anyway, so you can flip between those, but as I said, the default view is users. We also give you some filters that will let you navigate this. So, I only have a handful of users because this is just a demo, but in a real world publisher, I mean, you may have hundreds and hundreds of advertisers signed up. So we let you sort by company. So we can do that. You can sort here from this menu, You can see this company has two users. Okay. Another useful thing is you can filter by the years and the months that they joined up. So I didn't have anyone sign up in this year, but if I go back last year, I've got some that joined the portal in 2015, and I can further restrict that or filter it by the month. Okay, so it's very easy to just narrow down on what you're looking for. You can also do an advanced search, okay? And you can also do a quick search. So a quick search is it very quickly narrows down the list of users that you're viewing. Okay, so and that's a common misconception with the quick search. So this little box up here, this filters what you're viewing. Now I only have 11 customers. If you have many hundreds, you may only see the first 100 or so in your list, and so the quick search isn't going to show you everything. It'll narrow down the list of the 100 that you're viewing in that page. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If you're looking for somebody and you know their name or part of their name, an email address, or the company name, you can type that here, and that will narrow it down for you. Okay, and that will search among all of your users, no matter how many you're viewing at that one particular page. So a common misconception with search, but whenever you actually click this and you open a panel, that's what we call advanced search. Okay, and that's a more thorough search. Okay, so you can also download a report here. You just click this, and this is kind of a canned report. Let's see if I can just show you what that report looks like. It's a very simple report. It'll open it in Excel for you, and it's basically going to give you the information that you were seeing in that view, but it combines the customers and the invitees. Okay. So you can see here that those the invitees that were signed up, they're denoted here. Okay. All right, so it's a simple report, but it might be useful if you're trying to figure out who's actually signed up. Okay, now let's look at the company view again for a moment. You can click any of these companies and you can get some additional information here. Okay. So there's the list of users, another way to view that. Okay, but we also give you some statistics, and this is handy if you'd like to know how many ads this particular customer sent total this year, and then the number of revisions and pickups in the last year, and then how many publications they sent to you. And we break that down in a table here for you so that you can see how many ads went to which publication. So if you're doing billing reports every month, you have a sense of that information in that way, or at one of the other reports. But this way, you're able to quickly hone in by company, and this is pulling it actively from the portal. So it's a nice view for that. This also says what brands, if you're using the brand feature in your upload form, it will maintain a list for you of the brands that have been used by that advertiser. Now there's a relatively new feature here that you might have seen. I'm sure you've all run into the issue where someone is trying to revise an ad over and over again, and eventually they run out of allowed revisions. So we've put in a relatively new feature where you can, for this particular advertiser, you can add additional revision attempts for them. So if you've got a user who's getting frustrated and they're trying to figure out a pre-flight problem that they fix one thing and they haven't quite gotten it, you can just bump that up for that company, and then those advertisers will be able to revise more times for a single file. Okay, now there is a perennial support issue that comes up for us, and that's, hey, I've got this advertiser who forgot their password, and can you reset it for us? Well, yes, we can. We can do that in support, but it's actually something we've enabled you as a publisher to do. Very often, the advertiser will contact you first about that rather than us. So you're kind of the first line of defense with that, and it's actually really simple for you to do. Now, you may say, well, advertisers, they should be able to reset their own password, and that's true. On the front login page, we offer, a reset your password link, and we have different methodologies for that. I mean, one is when a user signs up, we ask them to give us a security question and answer pair. So hopefully they remember their answer and they can, retrieve their password that way without even trying to send themselves an email. If they don't remember that, we'll send them a reset email. So why doesn't that work? Why don't the advertisers do that? Well, there's a couple things, and I'll tell you that what we find many times is that a user, an advertiser, and your own staff users do this too. For the question and answer, they'll pick one of the questions, what's your favorite, I don't know, baseball team, and they'll write, the Bears or the Redskins or the Patriots, So they'll give sort of a nonsensical answer to the question. What's your oldest child's middle name? Blue, So of course they don't remember it when they go to reset their password. They just made something up for the question and answer. So that's probably the most common reason. And then for the classes where the cases where they get an email to reset their password, it does happen, especially with advertisers who maybe don't interact with SendMyAd as much. They may have a very aggressive spam filter, whether they control it on their email client or it's their corporate email server. They just may never see our email telling them how to reset their password. So that's why they typically come to you, and then you come to us. So, but in order to do that yourself, it's a long way of saying just click on their name and go to change password. Okay, so you'll notice it doesn't show the security question and answer. There's no ability for you to get in and see that. All this does is just let you assign a new password and confirm it and save it. And then you can just simply, call them, email them and say, hey, I changed your password to change me. Please go change your password to something you remember after you log in. So, that's a support request that is, you can handle that very quickly, very efficiently without raising that with us. I mean, we're happy to help you with it, but it'll save everyone time and keep your customers more happy if you just remember simply that, go in here and change the password. Now, you'll also see that I have this additional revisions item here. I can do that per user, or you saw I was able to do that per company. So again, that's something you might not have seen before. And then another common item that we run into is remove as customer. Sometimes people will think that, okay, somebody signed up with the wrong email address. They need to be an internal user rather than an advertiser. I'll go remove them as a customer, and then they can sign up as a staff user, or I can create them as a staff user. And that actually is not the case here. What that does is it simply removes the relationship between that advertiser and your company. But keep in mind that advertisers, these advertisers all appear to belong to me, but they don't really belong to me. These are advertisers, and they might send, ads to many different publishers that are our, SendMyAd customers. So you never have an ability to delete an advertiser account. You simply say they're not one of my customers anymore. Okay, so that's why, at least for now, you need to let us know if we need to move a user. Okay, and we're talking about how to do that um, yourself, but that's something that let us know and we can deal with that. But just keep in mind that remove as customer is not removing the account. That email address is still in use. Okay, let's see. Let's talk a little bit about advertiser adoption of the portal. Now, this is something that you probably haven't thought about a lot, maybe once you get past the initial setup and first ramping up with SendMyAd. But it's a good thing to kind of keep in mind and maybe revisit from time to time. So we actually have some useful tips here, and if you go to the Get Help section, either up here or in your dashboard, there's a button for the help manual. So if we go to that, there's a Getting Started with SendMyAd for publishers. And there's this article here that we've written about how to increase the ad portal adoption. And there's things that you did when you first set up. You announced to your users with a link to the registration page. Some of our publishers will, in their signature of their emails, for anybody who's dealing with advertisers day in, day out, they'll have a little slug in the bottom of their signature about, hey, we now accept our ads only through SendMyAd, and here's how you can register. Go here to send your ads, or go look at a video. Okay, including information about SendMyAd in your media kit. And another really useful tip that I find here is to customize the customer invitation email. So we give you a pretty bare bones email template for that. But if you look in your company profile under templates, there's the customer invitation email. Okay? And this is just kind of boilerplate, generic text, but this is yours. I mean, you can save it, do whatever you want with this. It's customizable, for your portal. So whatever information you want to impart to your advertisers that will help them get started, link to a video that you've made and you host on your site, link to a PDF that you've created, or in that email, include information there about how to best use the portal. So you've got lots of spaces where you can try to get that information to users and have them use the site more effectively. You can even put in your regular emails that go out to existing users, not only to help increase adoption, but to sort of educate your customers at the same time. I mean, you can put things like in your when you're requesting an ad, for instance, you might put like SendMyAd tips and tricks of your own in there, things that you found that are helpful. Okay, and that can just be anywhere down here. You can really be creative with this stuff. All right. And then there's quite a few videos in the site. These are some of them are a little older, but some of these are relevant for advertisers. There's some typical support things like clearing your browser cache, using the ad sizes, how to upload an ad. So it's very easy to link to those, and you can link to those in the emails, or just refer users to those when they're having problems. So, all of those, they're good to revisit and to look at, and just to, stop for a second and realize that, you do have these emails, these notifications going back and forth. You can use those to, really make the portal attractive and to educate those that are already using it but maybe are not using it as effectively. Okay, let's talk about approvals. This is our tutorial part of the thing. I like to pick a topic and go a little bit deeper. So let's start with just looking at the first place you should go to when you're talking about publisher approvals. Now, just for those of you who may not know, a publisher approval is when you've uploaded an ad and the advertiser has approved it. There's a place in let's see, let me switch to one that doesn't have one. Okay, so once the advertiser has approved their ad, this is now in the advertiser approval phase. So when I approve this, no, it doesn't belong to any issues. All right, well, I'll show you one that's been done already. Once the advertiser has approved it, it can go through a whole cycle of approvals, and there can be as many or as few as you wish, but they'll appear in this this right panel, and you can advance them one by one through the different steps that you require. And this is all about your workflow. So, you know, do you need legal to sign off on something? Do you need somebody to verify the color? You know, whatever your workflow is with these ads, we can accommodate that. So to set these up, there's really a couple places that you have to be aware of. Now, the first place that you should think of is the approval cycle setup in your company profile. And there's a Configure Approval Cycles button right here. Now, there are two levels of approvals, and these are at the global level and at the publication level. And we have the ability to configure approvals for the different types of ads. So because my portal is a very full-featured one for demonstration purposes, I have ad creator ads, I have tablet ads, digital ads, I have some virtual publisher specific types of things here. But basically, we can have different sets of approval cycles per ad type. And we also are able to configure these at the global level, meaning for every publication, or to further refine those per publication. So think of the, you first have to think of your needs. You know, do I have 100 different publications and they all go through the same workflow? You know, I have the same staff that's doing approvals for, you know, magazine 1 and magazine 2 and magazine 3, or does every publication have a unique team, or do I have a group of people that are responsible for several different publications? You know, so you really have to analyze first your need. Okay, if typically what we see is what you'd expect if you have a smaller number of titles, it may be that you've got the same staff that's doing the approval steps for all of the titles. And in that case, all you probably really need to do is go into this section right here and set up a global approval. So I'm going to do that right now. I actually have a couple that I already began to set up, but I can always add steps here. You just click that, give it a name. And I have the option to approve only once per file. And that means that actually we try and give you help here after this. But if an ad gets revised, it may be that you don't want this approval to have to be done again for each cycle. Okay, but let's go ahead and add this. Now, when we add it, it becomes active automatically, and you can see the difference between an active and an inactive approval step. Okay. You see that just changes it back to a gray. Okay, well, let's go back to my global one. I'm going to activate it. Okay. And right now, I don't have anyone assigned to it. We recently improved the selection of users, both users and groups, for setting up approvals. We can now let you add the approvers based on a group that they're in. And we'll come back and look at that in a little bit. But basically, it knows that these two users are in that group approvals, and it activated those for this approval. And then the reverse is true. We can also remove by group. So if you're trying to remove a certain set of users and you've got 10 users in here, you can manage that by group as well. Just select approvals and then remove. Okay. All right. So I've got one approval step set up. Okay. But maybe I need two. Okay. So let me activate this. And maybe that third user needs to be kind of the final approval here. Okay. Now, you'll notice up here that I talked about final approval. We have an option here, and that is that the approvals would happen in order. And that's usually turned on, but it's not necessary. You can have 3 or 4 different groups, and they can all have their turn at approving the ad simultaneously. In other words, your workflow is not sequential, but you just need someone from each of those approval groups to sign off at some point during your workflow. If that's the case, you can just turn off approvals must happen in order, and then we don't have to worry about that. Okay. We also have this option if we are doing that sequential idea, that things have to happen in order, then we have this option to notify the next group when it's their turn. Okay. Obviously, we don't need to do that if it's not a sequential kind of deal. Okay. Now, you'll also see that there's an option for a master approval. And this is also a relatively new thing. Again, we try and give you help here. And this is an option only when you're not doing approvals in order. You can specify one of these approvals as a master approval, which basically just means that it can override everything. It's sort of a shortcut. It's like, okay, you've got your management who, they need to get something through. They can look at an ad and take responsibility for it, and just when they approve it, it doesn't matter if the other existing groups haven't yet signed off. Okay. So that's an option. So you can see we let you model your workflows in different ways. Okay, I'm going to turn on that they must be done in order. And I'm going to close this. Okay, so that was our global approval. Now, just to give you a comparison, there's also the publication level. So let's go to this publication, and under the Actions menu, there's also a Manage Approval Cycles. And you can see that for print ads, I do have one step, but it's not active, so it's not being used. By the way, I can remove approval steps if I so choose right there. Now, this one has a note here, and this tells us that the publication approvals override the company level approvals. So what happens is when a file enters, it's been approved by the advertiser, we first look to see, do you have approval cycles set up for the publication? And if you do, we use those. And if you don't, then we look back where we were before, back here at the global level under the company profile. And we see that, okay, we actually have a couple configured active approval settings at the global level. So we take those and we use those. Okay. If you don't have any set up for print ads in the global level, well, then when the advertiser approves, the file just gets finalized. That tells us that there's nothing to do but to deliver the file once you've had your advertiser sign off. Okay. All right. Now, as it happens, this interface takes up quite a lot of screen real estate. So a lot of times you might not even see the last couple of items over here in the configuration. But there's a couple important things, and one is that we can actually have a couple things that we require your publisher approvers to do before they're allowed to sign off on an ad. So you can have things like they have to fill in a materials ID. Now we typically are automatically creating materials ID for you, but for some publishers they choose not to do that, and the publisher is manually entering a materials ID or a booking number for their ads. So that's part of their workflow. This is sort of a check before they approve the ad that they've done that step is taken care of. So we have a couple of these that are very specific to materials ID and booking number. And then we also have this idea of a more generic thing, which is to fill a form item. And so this can even be one of your custom metadata fields, or it could be one of our supplied things. So I have just a silly custom metadata field called weather, and it means that I have to fill that out for this global one approval to be allowed. Okay. And then at the very bottom, we have an option to do something. And the most common option is after we've approved this ad, we want to deliver a copy of it somewhere. So this one, you have to set up a delivery location. And that's in the same area here under your company profile. And let's see, I had this one, approvals digital. And you can see that you just set up an FTP or other type of delivery. And we say under here, when should this be triggered? And it's on a publisher approval. Okay? And we just say that that's what we want to do. We want to send a copy of this file to some location when it's been approved. So this could be driving a proofer somewhere. It could be some external system that you have. So that's an option as well. Okay. A very, very common thing. This is the main thing I really wanted to show you from a support perspective today, and that is we get these questions about we just set up a new group, or I just put a user in a group. They're a new user, and they're not able to approve ads. They're not able to do an approval cycle, but they're in the same group. They have admin rights. Okay, and this comes up quite frequently. So I just want to take you through and show you how that works. So we've got in our groups, we have different groups set up. And so I'm going to look at one of these, and they've got a bunch of rights, okay, and they have some things that they're allowed to do and some things that they're not allowed to do. Okay. Notice that my filter, I've got all rights enabled, or sorry, all rights visible. But if I search for approve, you can see that I have rights for third-party pickup approvals, approved materials, virtual publisher approvals, okay? But there's nothing about approval cycles, okay? Approval cycles are configured only in the way that I just showed you. It has nothing to do with user and group rights. Now, we did put in that new feature that lets you assign a group to an approval cycle, but that's where they are associated with that ability. It's not in this user rights section. And so that's something that really trips people up. Again, it's kind of complicated with the approval cycle setup, but it's really important that you understand that it's not a right inherent to the group, but we assign groups to or users to approval cycles. Now, in my earlier example, I had this group called approvals, and I wanted to use that as an example. So I selected this. I included a couple users in that thing, and now if you look, that group doesn't have any rights. Okay, they're getting their rights in SendMyAd from other groups that they belong to. Okay, my own account here belongs to a system publisher administrator group, and I get a bunch of rights to see ads and manage billing and all of that from those groups. But this is simply a convenience that allows me to more quickly assign groups of users to particular approval cycles. Okay. Really, the last part I think and that's just how do these actually work? You go to an ad that's I'm just going to put a valid issue on this. Okay, so you go to an ad that's been approved by the advertiser, and you now have the ability, this comes from the publication and not the global level. I now can approve these, and that's where we see it. It tells you it's publisher approvals. Okay. You have different options for what you can do here. Okay. But basically, you need to look at, review it however you want. Does that mean that you view the pre-flight report, you look at the PDF X1A that we made, whatever you need to do, but then you sign off on it, you approve it. Okay? And when you do that, we separate the pending approvals that are still waiting to be done with the ones that have been finished. Okay? You'll notice that we have an option under here called unapprove. This is a relatively recent one that we added. It's been there for a while, but it's not often discovered. So if I was the one that did that approval, it's an undo. Okay, so maybe I accidentally hit approve when I meant to hit reject, or I approved it and then I noticed something. Okay, it's only me that's allowed to do that because I did the approval. Okay, but let's go ahead and approve it. And as it happens, I probably belong to this other approval group as well. That's more for demonstration, not really real life workflow. Okay, but once the ad progresses through however many steps you've set up, it will get finalized and delivered. Now, you may want to look at and see who did those approvals. Okay. And you can do that in two ways. You can view it in the history, okay, and that gives you the information there. Or kind of a nicer way to view that is to go under Actions to view approvals. And here it'll tell me it's the same information, but it's a little easier to see out of that history log. Okay. Now, as I said, this can drive emails. So it could be that if I've set these up sequentially, they have to be in order. I'll get an email that says click this link and approve. Okay. You can also look under the print ads and filter by ads that are in the publisher approval state. Okay. And we also have this your approvals view, which is kind of interesting. If you have approvals cycles set up and you belong to more than one for a particular file, you'll actually see the file listed here twice, and that's because you're viewing approvals rather than files. So it's a different way to think about that. Probably the easiest thing is to filter by publisher approval in the main print ads view. All right. Well, we ran kind of long this time. This was quite a lot of information. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. We're happy when you can sit in on these, and please feel free to give us any feedback, comments. We post these videos for you, so the next day You'll be able to view these on YouTube. And if you have suggestions for next month's topic, by all means, please email us in support directly or contact your sales rep, and we'll be sure to try and work in what's interesting for you into our next month's agenda. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next month.